Hello, my name is Stephen Bedard, and as I record this, we are getting just a couple of weeks away from Easter, and many people often think of the cross when it comes to Easter, and of course we should be thinking about that. It's extremely important. That's where our sins are paid for. That's where we receive the atonement, but also we need to be remembering the resurrection. The resurrection of Jesus is extremely important. In fact, it's so important that when the Apostle Paul was preaching to the Athenians, they actually thought that he was preaching about two gods, one named Jesus and one named the resurrection. That's how central the resurrection was to the preaching of Jesus. And in fact, when we look at the letters of Paul, very often he will mention the resurrection of Jesus and not the crucifixion. Now that's not to say that Paul didn't value the crucifixion. He talks about wanting to preach and to know Christ crucified. But the reason why he talks about the resurrection is if you look at the first century in that area, there were thousands and thousands of people who were crucified. There was nothing unique about a crucifixion, but there was something unique about a resurrection. And so when Paul preaches about the resurrection, he's not denying the cross. Rather, he's giving evidence that something special happened on the cross, that Jesus dying there on that cross was not like all of the other people who were crucified, that it was something special, that something real happened. And so we need to focus on the resurrection. And Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 that if Jesus was not raised from the dead, then our faith is just a waste of time. There's no point for us to be Christians if Jesus wasn't actually raised. So we're not saying that he was raised in the sense of being in the hearts of the disciples and he just seemed so real. It's not about them having dreams about Jesus, but rather that Jesus physically was raised from the dead. But why should we even believe that? That just seems like such an unbelievable event that should be easily discounted. But I would say that the resurrection of Jesus is one of the best attested events that we have in the Bible. And this is what we know. We know that Jesus did die on the cross. There are some people who will try to say that he didn't quite die, that he passed out and was taken off and was able to recover in the tomb, but there's no real reason to believe that. First of all, the Romans were very good at what they did, and they knew to check to see if someone was alive or dead. And that's why in John we see that in John they use the spear to make sure that Jesus is dead. But even without the spear, what would have happened if Jesus had just passed out? Well, when someone dies on the cross, they are dying from lack of breath. They can't raise their body up to get the next breath. And if Jesus passed out, he just wouldn't be able to breathe and would die soon afterwards. So there's no reason for us to believe that he just passed out on the cross. And even if he did, and I'm saying he didn't, but even if he did, if he went into the tomb with no medical attention, no food, no water, what would happen in those couple of days that he was in that tomb? Even if in some unbelievable way that Jesus survived the cross, he would definitely have died in that tomb. There's no way that he could survive. And even if he did survive a couple of days, is he really going to be in the strength to be able to move that rock and to get out of there? That's absolutely unbelievable. There's no way to do that. So Jesus did die on the cross, and we know that Jesus was seen afterwards. Now some people will say, well, Peter just had a lot of grief, and so he saw what he wanted to see. And you know what? I could believe that if it was only Peter. But it wasn't only Peter. It was also the rest of the 12. It was the other apostles, the disciples, Jesus' family. We know that Jesus appeared to James, his half-brother, that Jesus appeared to more than 500 people. Read about it in the beginning of 1 Corinthians 15. Paul gives us a list, and he words it in a way that we could just, or the original readers, could just go to Jerusalem and to talk to these witnesses of the resurrected Christ. And so we have to figure out, how did that happen? How can one person be dead one day and then a couple days later be alive? And the resurrection is the only way to explain that. So I hope that you will be thinking about that this Easter. I encourage you to check out my webpage, stephenjbedard.com, and there's a section on there called Free Stuff where I have a bulletin insert for the evidence of the resurrection. You might want to use that in your church. Thank you for watching this, and God bless and have a great Easter.